Hello, everyone.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. So glad it's Friday, and welcome to our Next Level Wealth Instagram Live. We are here to talk about a very important topic that seems to be causing some people a lot of anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, you know, anything involving money can do that, but there's a lot of talk in the news and just we're hearing it in general about worries about another recession coming, about the economic downturn. If you turn on the news or read the news, everything looks really scary, right? Mm-hmm. Which is generally true when you watch the news, but the economy is definitely a hot topic in the news lately. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what you can do to recession-proof your business. What are our top tips? What are the things that you can do to thrive financially and just be successful in any kind of market?
Yes.
What you got for that, Jen?
Well, that was quite an intro. Here's the thing is there are partly, I think, investing and having some support. So whether it's a coach, whether it's somebody at work where you can have realistic conversations, true conversations, right? Not fear-based conversations. I think that is always useful. Mm-hmm. The first tip that I have, I call trash in, trash out, which is kind of a weird thing to say. My mom, when I was a little girl, would tell me trash in, trash out. And what I think she meant was if you're allowing, negative input into your life, negative input is what's going to come out, or negative output, right? And so I think one of the most important things that we can do is, I don't like when people don't tell me like not to worry, so I'm not going to tell you not to worry. What I'm going to say is don't surround yourself with information that can cause you to kind of spiral, right? So it's human nature for us when we are worried about something or fear. I'm sure you have seen this with clients.
Oh yeah. When
they're in fear, we tend to look for outside sources. Hey, Jessica. Thanks for being here. We look for outside sources, mm-hmm. right? To confirm our fear, mm-hmm. right? Whether we do this consciously or unconsciously, like this is the thing that we do. And so what I see a lot of folks doing right now is they're looking to the news. They're looking to reasons why they may not be performing at the highest level, or whatever, any confirmation that like there's doom on the way, right? And it's a protective mechanism. It's what we do, right? And yet I'm going to actually ask that you are really conscious and aware of doing the opposite, which means I actually don't want you to surround yourself with other people who buy into your fear. I actually want you to hang out with people who challenge your fear. Mm-hmm. And this is across the board, honestly.
Right.
We're talking about this in particular in a downturn market, but this can be useful anywhere. Mm-hmm. When just think about it. Like when you have that friend, right, that's like, yeah, girl, you're right, and just can like, yeah, and then this thing, and then this thing. It's like we can spin and spin. That's feels good for a minute, and then it makes us actually more anxious.
True.
And so I'm going to ask you to start to be around people who maybe have already been through a recession, people who have come out of on the other side mm-hmm. of difficult situations, and talk to them about how they did that, mm-hmm. right? Rather than getting caught in this story of how things are negative all the time, mm-hmm. right? Jessica, you said we argue for our own limitations. Absolutely.
It's a good way to put that.
Right? Yeah. Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. So really just being aware. So if you're somebody who watches a lot of news, I would recommend that you stop. Mm-hmm. If you're somebody who picks up your phone first thing in the morning, do something else first, mm-hmm. right? If you're going to look at the news, make sure that you're well insulated, right? You're well taken care of, you're well nourished in order to be ready to hear that information with a little bit clearer of a mind so that you can discern.
That's a good point. To anything you take in, the more often you can do it mindfully, make a conscious decision around it. And like the news, right? If you feel, and I get it, people feel like they need to be really well informed, totally understand, but just take a moment before you read that news or get on the news channel take a deep breath and go, okay, I recognize what this is, and I'm going to go into this mindfully. I'm not going to be reactive. Yeah, please stop watching the news. Yeah, I never watch the news, actually. if I know about anything, it's by reading it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's just too much stimulation anyway. But
Sure.
yeah, just doing that mindfully.
Yeah, and I think that's when we can kind of stay out of the fear space, when we can really, as much as possible, go to mindfulness, really go to support, getting support rather than just like circling the drain with others. So that's the first one: trash in, trash out. Stay away from it. Stay away from the negative messaging. Number 2 is stay away from shiny objects. So what happens is when we get scared, right, and we're especially entrepreneurs, we're out there looking for the next big thing, right?
Yeah.
The magic pill, the magic solution. Like something that's going to make us different than everyone else, something that is going to be simple, something that's just going to solve all of our problems. And we tend to get, number one, those things tend to cost money. And so that can cause us some issues if we're already looking at people spending differently, because that's really what happens in a recession,
right? Is consumers
spend differently, right? And so we've got to be aware of that and not chase things that obviously are going to cost financially, but also cost energy wise, because that's going to take away from our third thing, which I think is actually really important, and people forget because they get into fear and they think they have to do something new. Actually, what I want you to do is double down on what has worked in the past. So, if you're an entrepreneur and you've got, I want you to dial in your lead sources. Where are your lead sources coming from? So lead sources, what I mean by that is, you're the clients that you're currently working with, the people that buy your product. Who are those people? Right? Where are they coming from? So for Amy and I, typically we have 2 places those come from. Typically. Well, 3 actually. One is our sphere. So people that already know it, like, and trust us. That's number 1, where our business comes from. Number 2, it's referrals from current clients or past clients. And number 3, it's speaking engagements. So whether we're online or in person, when we get in front of people, that's where we get business from.
That's true.
Right? So we need to double down on those 3 things rather than thinking, we've got to create this new online course, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, we've got to really spread ourselves really thin. That's what I want you guys to think about, is what is already working for you, and how can you, I had a coach that one time used to say to me, how can we plus that? Right? So what you're doing is already good, but let's take it to that next step. Just one step ahead. I'm not saying 12 steps ahead, but what's the one step that you can go ahead in that area, or do it just a little bit more consistently, right? Gary Keller, who owns Keller Williams, he often says, go back to basics, right? So that's exactly what I'm saying here. I'm saying double down on what's already worked. Like let's strip it down. When our market is going wild and crazy, we can try new things. That's we do. It's not always wise, but we have the flexibility to be able to do that when things pare down a little bit and consumers get a little bit more choosy about how they spend their money. We need to be smart about how we're spending our money and the energy that we're putting out.
I love that.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that is some of the best advice I've ever heard you give, is about doubling down on what works instead of going for the shiny objects. Because, when we make decisions about anything from a fear-based or an anxious mindset, then those decisions are not likely going to be supportive or helpful to us personally or to our business. I mean, for me, I have that tendency to go towards the shiny object, right?
Oh
my gosh. I'm like, okay, here's what we need to do.
That's right.
Anytime I say that, it usually means that I'm coming from this anxious place. Here's what we need to do, right? I think we need to create an online course, and then we're going to make it like this. And then it's like, well, that is not tested. That's not tried and true. Now may not be the time to do that. When things are different in the market or the economy, sure, there's this rhythm that we're all in. Our nervous system is like this, the economy is like this, expansion and contraction, right? Things are constantly expanding and contracting. I mean, down to your very lungs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to pay attention to that. What do you want to do in an expansion time, in an expanding time, and what do you do during that kind of coming back inward, that contraction?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's right. And I'm not saying to you, if you're planning an online course or you're doing something else right now, that doesn't mean that this is a bad time to do that. It just means that I want you to be more aware. Is this me chasing a shiny object out of fear? Or is this me really looking at my community and what people are asking for and filling a need? There's a very different thing. Anytime I have to constantly ask myself, am I coming from a place of fear here, or is this just as I move forward? And then you got to have checks and balances. The great thing about having Amy is we can go back and forth and say, hey, what do you think about this? And we know that the other person is going to help balance. So if she comes from a place of fear, I can kind of drop into like support there, and then vice versa. So finding that person in your life, whether it's, a friend or a coach or a coworker, I do think is really important, especially during this time. I watched this with the pandemic. All three of these same things were true during the pandemic. And my clients, some of them are on here. I see Danielle. They all did just fine in the pandemic. And partly it was because they cut out the noise. They didn't kind of go towards the shiny object that was like, we have to like create these fancy videos and do all this stuff, right? Because we can't get in.
Because we're afraid we're not going to get, it's not even happened yet, but we're afraid we're not going to get enough clients.
That's right. And then they double down. They just did, if they were doing, something for 2 hours a day, they did it for 3, right? They just did a little bit more. Or maybe they didn't have the time to give more hours. They just created more focus and efficiency during that time. So the answer isn't always more hours. Sometimes it's just additional leverage, additional efficiency, additional focus.
That makes sense.
Yep.
I love that. That is really helpful.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we hope that you have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. And a happy Halloween, because that's Monday.
That's right. Enjoy your Halloween, and we will see you again soon. Bye.